Alright, so today I'm going to go ahead and talk to you guys a little bit about proper ways to conduct yourself when you are coming into contact with a guide dog. So the title of my speech is going to be Interacting with Guide Dogs Within Our Community. So this is a really important speech, near and dear to my heart. Talking about credibility and credentials, I did raise 2 guide dogs and I spent about a year and a half socializing each of one of those. So I do feel like I have a pretty good background as far as what's expected with guide dogs. And so why is this interesting? Why is this important? Why do we need to know this? So I feel like this speech is a very important thing to go ahead and deliver, just simply because how many times have you seen a guide dog? How many times have you seen one in public? How did you feel? Were you nervous, excited, worried? I mean, all of these are very common reactions, but it's kind of a good thing to step back and analyze your personal reactions just so that you can kind of evaluate what you're doing and make sure whether it's right or wrong. So my goals for today are just for you guys to be able to analyze my 3 points and kind of take those and apply them to your life to make sure that you're taking the correct steps to make sure that you are conducting yourself in the best manner possible. So what are we going to discuss today? So like I said, I have 3 main points. We're going to talk about how guide dogs can become easily distracted. We're going to talk about therapy animals and how they deal with safety and handlers and all of those types of things, and the reasons that somebody may have a guide dog. So moving to my first point, we're going to talk about the dog's responsibility. So the dog is responsible for leading somebody who cannot see, and they should never be distracted from this duty simply because it really does impede on the individual's safety if the dog is distracted, and the person's safety does really depend on the dog's attention and awareness. So why don't we call a guide dog when they're working? Guide dogs cannot read traffic signals, but they are very aware of what's going on and they are trained to keep their handler safe. And so when there's a break in this animal's concentration, it leaves room for the handler's safety to be impacted also. So can you pet them? So this one is kind of a yes and no type of thing. According to a website, Vision Surveillance, an article that I read, it says, while in their harnesses, guide dogs are working and you should not pet them. So even though they are furry and adorable, you need to resist because it will break the concentration of the animal and ergo impede the safety of the individual. Moving to my next topic, we're going to talk a little bit about therapy animals and safety of the handler and all those types of things. So what is an owner-approved interaction? So according to Vision Surveillance, again, you can ask someone if you can pet their guide dog. Quickly back up and reevaluate yourself if they say no. Do not go ahead and pressure them because the handler knows what the guide dog can handle and cannot handle at that point in their life. Can you feed the animal? This is another interesting thing. So in an article titled 7 Things You Didn't Know About Guide Dogs, the author Shay explains that guides are taught to refuse food from outside individuals. This again can lead to a break in concentration, which impacts the safety of the animal, which links back to the distractions. A final point for this one is going to be guide dogs, their manners and trainings. So an article from Guide Dogs for the Blind, it says intelligent disobedience or refusing to do something that could harm the handler is taught to improve safety. So one of the important things that article brought up was simply crossing a street. So if a handler wants to cross a street and they're blind, they can't see, that dog is going to go ahead, evaluate the scene, see the cars crossing, and they're going to resist crossing the street simply for the safety of their handler. Moving to my last and final point, we're going to talk about reasons that people do have guide dogs. So there's a number of different reasons to have a guide or a therapy dog. This has mostly been centered around guide dogs, as that is where I'm most aware of things, but we're going to talk a little bit about therapy dogs as they all kind of get lumped in the same category. So some common misconceptions. According to Vision Aware, it says that only people will have therapy dogs. Well, that's a common misconception simply because there is therapy and there is guide dogs, and there's 2 different realms, and we're going to talk about that a little bit on my next point. So we're going to talk a little bit about emotional support dogs. So on an article from the US Dog Registry, it had quite a few things listed as far as common needs and things like that for guide dogs. And so there is dogs for anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder, panic attacks, and PTSD. So those are some of the most common ones that I pulled because everybody pretty much knows about those. My last and final point for this area is going to be, are the rules the same for guide and therapy dogs? And the simplest answer is yes. You know, look at the dog's vest. If the vest says do not touch, then don't touch. Or with owner approval, you can go ahead and pet them, but make sure that you always ensure that the dog is working first and foremost and that you have owner approved interactions. So when in doubt, leave the pair alone. Do not try and distract the dog, as again, their safety will be impacted. So, says, we covered many topics today. So we have 3 just listed above. So let me just summarize them a little bit. Again, we have guide dogs that can become distracted. These distractions can be simple as petting, name calling, getting excited. These distractions leads directly into our second point of staying safe. These dogs are in charge of keeping their handlers safe. So these distractions can impede on the safety of the handler. And then again, my final point is that there's many reasons that someone may have a guide or a therapy dog. Do not lump them all together. Not all people are the same, and the dogs are all trained to do different things. And it is really important to remember what we've talked about in relation to guide dogs, therapy dogs, and our everyday interactions. So I just want to go ahead and thank you guys for your participation in today's discussion. And I want you to remember what to do when you see a guide dog working. So I really do hope that you gathered a little bit of information today that you can take with you into your future. Thank you.